I woke up to a miracle today. Triggers fade as I find my way. No judgment to lead astray. In this peaceful state I'll stay.
Welcome back. We are moving forward in A Course in Miracles in Practice today. We're going to be focusing our attention on Lesson 307.
Yes, and that lesson is titled, Conflicting Wishes Cannot Be My Will.
It's quite a statement, isn't it?
It really does clarify where so much of our mental struggle comes from.
You can always connect with us on social media. We're at the World Harmony Project.
Or shoot us an email at ACIM@theworldharmonyproject.org. We do enjoy hearing from you.
All right, let's begin with the full reading of Lesson 307 itself.
Father, your will is mine, and only that. There is no other will for me to have. Let me not try to make another will, for it is senseless and will cause me pain. Your will alone can bring me happiness, and only yours exists. If I would have what only you can give, I must accept your will for me and enter into peace where conflict is impossible. Your Son is one with you in being and in will, and nothing contradicts the holy truth that I remain as you created me.
And with this prayer, we enter silently into a state where conflict cannot come, because we join our holy will with God's in recognition that they are the same.
That opening line, conflicting wishes cannot be my will. It's just so definitive.
It doesn't say they shouldn't be or they're unhelpful. It flat out says they cannot be, an impossibility.
And that's a metaphysical statement, isn't it? Not just advice on how to feel better.
It's pointing to the root cause of every single time we argue with ourselves internally. You know, whether it's a huge life decision or something as simple as what to have for breakfast.
We tend to think the conflict is about the thing we're deciding on. Like, I remember spending ages going back and forth about whether to go visit family one weekend. Part of me really wanted to see them, but another part just craved a quiet weekend at home. And the mental energy I spent debating, it was draining.
That feeling, that pull in opposite directions, that's the exact signal this lesson talks about. The physical tension, the mental exhaustion.
Right. And the lesson is saying the conflict wasn't really about visiting family versus staying home. It was about the will behind those choices.
The Course is very clear here. It says there are only two wills, period. There's God's will, which is total peace, unity, love.
And then there's the ego's will, which is all about separation, fear, lack, needing something outside ourselves.
So whenever you feel that internal friction, that being torn feeling, the Course says you're actually trying to serve both of those wills at the same time.
Trying to hold on to the ego's perspective and God's perspective simultaneously.
Which the lesson states is completely impossible. You can't serve two masters whose fundamental goals are diametrically opposed.
And attempting that impossibility, that's what creates what the lesson calls tyrannous control. It feels tyrannical because maintaining that inner division takes immense effort.
It really does. You pour so much mental energy into just holding these opposing ideas about yourself or the world.
And the specific thing you're conflicted about, whether it's finances or a relationship issue or even just that weekend plan, it almost doesn't matter.
The content changes constantly, doesn't it? But the structure of the conflict is always identical. It's the ego arguing for its goal of separation, trying to convince you that happiness lies in getting the specific outcome, and that outcome is somehow threatened by peace or unity.
So that feeling of conflict, the tension itself, that's the key signal. It tells you you've slipped into the ego's way of thinking.
It's valuable information. That tightness in your chest, the mind racing, those are indicators that you're dedicating your mind to a division that, according to the Course, doesn't actually exist in reality.
So instead of immediately trying to solve the surface problem, like should I visit family or not, the practice becomes recognizing the feeling of being torn as the primary issue.
It tells you, okay, I've forgotten my true unified will right now, and I'm trying to invent a separate, conflicting one for myself. The conflict itself is the sign you're attempting the impossible.
Okay, so that's the recognition. But let's talk application. Because knowing there are two wills doesn't automatically make complex situations easy. Let's use a tough example. Imagine someone yells at you publicly, say, a neighbor over a misunderstanding about property lines.
Oof. Yeah, those situations trigger immediate defensiveness.
Right. And instantly your mind starts spinning. Should I report them to the homeowners association? Should I confront them directly? Should I just try to let it go? Intense internal friction.
That's a perfect example of where the conflict feels overwhelming. The feelings feeling attacked, maybe embarrassed, angry, they're strong. And they immediately activate the ego's need to control things, to defend itself, to win.
Exactly. So step one is that recognition, surface versus deep. The surface conflict is the argument about the property line or the neighbor's behavior.
But the deep conflict is happening inside your own mind. It's the ego wanting justice, which often means punishment, wanting to be proven right, wanting to control how others see you.
Versus the Holy Spirit's purpose, which is consistently just peace and healing for everyone involved, regardless of who was right about the fence post.
And in those moments, the ego's voice is usually screaming the loudest, right?
Yeah.
Defend yourself. Don't let them get away with that. You look weak if you don't fight back.
While the Holy Spirit, the voice for God's unified will, is quietly offering a different path. Let go of the need for a specific outcome. Choose peace instead.
Which leads us to step 2, the pause and purpose shift. This takes conscious effort. When that internal pressure cooker is boiling, you have to deliberately stop the reactive spin.
And ask that crucial question. What's this for? What is the purpose I'm assigning to this situation right now?
Am I using this neighbor incident to reinforce my feeling of being victimized, to build my case against them? Or do I genuinely want this interaction, however it unfolds, to lead toward clarity and peace for myself and maybe even for them?
That single question can shift the entire foundation of the moment. The ego's purpose is always attack or defense.
By pausing and consciously inviting the Holy Spirit's purpose, peace, understanding, forgiveness, you change the ground you're standing on. The situation might still be awkward or difficult, but your internal stance shifts.
I know for many, though, that pause feels difficult. When someone comes at you aggressively, the instinct is immediate defense. Pausing can feel like you're letting them win, or like you're invalidating your own feelings.
And that's where step 3, feel without defining, is so important. The Course never asks us to pretend we don't have feelings. If you feel attacked, defensive, small, angry, acknowledge that. Those are real experiences as feelings.
The key is not letting those feelings define reality or dictate who you are. You can feel the anger rising, the defensiveness tightening your chest.
And then you add the crucial perspective. Okay, I feel this. This is an ego reaction, asking for healing, asking for love. But this feeling doesn't tell the truth about the situation or about who I truly am.
So you give the feeling space. You don't suppress it, but you simultaneously withhold its power to define the truth of the moment. The feeling is real as a feeling, but it's not telling you the factual story.
Which then allows you to move to step 4, ask for guidance. Once the initial reactive storm has calmed even slightly, you ask for help from that different internal source.
You ask the Holy Spirit, or whatever name you use for that inner wisdom, what would you have me do here?
And it's critical, as you said earlier, that we're not asking for a strategy to win the argument with the neighbor. We're not asking for tactics.
We're asking for the next right action, or maybe even non-action, that comes from a place of inner alignment, from that unified will.
Which then flows into step 5, act from peace. Now, acting from peace doesn't always mean being passive or silent.
Right. The outward action might look quite similar to what the ego might suggest in some cases. Maybe the guided action is to calmly state your understanding of the property line, or to set a clear boundary about how you expect to be spoken to.
But the source of the action is completely different. If you confront the neighbor out of egoic rage or defensiveness, you're just pouring fuel on the inner fire of conflict, even if you get them to back down temporarily.
But if you act from that place of inner clarity, having paused and asked for guidance, you're addressing the situation responsibly, setting a boundary, clarifying facts, but without reinforcing the conflict within your own mind. Your peace isn't dependent on their reaction.
And that's where forgiveness comes in a practical sense. Forgiveness isn't saying the neighbor's yelling was okay.
No, it's recognizing that their attack, their anger, came from their own internal state of fear and separation. It came from their ego.
And that state, their fear, has no real power over your peace unless you choose to join it by reacting with your own fear and attack. You can see clearly what happened, address it if needed, but refuse to buy into the ego story that you are diminished or defined by their behavior.
That distinction between acting from peace and spiritual bypassing is important too. Sometimes people worry that choosing peace means they just become doormats.
It's a common concern. Spiritual bypassing uses spiritual ideas to avoid necessary action or confrontation out of fear of conflict, fear of not looking spiritual.
But acting from peace isn't avoidance. It's grounded action. It comes from the certainty of your unified will. It might mean having a firm conversation, but it's done from clarity, not anxiety.
The action becomes purposeful communication, not just an emotional reaction. You're addressing the issue without needing to stir up internal conflict to motivate yourself.
And you see how the ego loves these situations, right? The neighbor conflict, the family visit dilemma, even small things like deciding on dinner.
Oh, it specializes in it. The ego takes the smallest disagreement or choice and turns it into this huge referendum on your entire worth, your safety, your future.
It uses the conflict as proof that you're inadequate or the world is hostile or you're fundamentally unsafe unless you control everything perfectly.
But this lesson reminds us that our true will, the one that's unified with God's will, contains zero conflict. It's inherently clear.
So anytime you feel that internal division, that anxiety of being pulled apart, it's simply because you're trying to keep one foot in the ego's thought system of separation while also wanting the peace of God's unified will.
And the incredible promise in this lesson is that when you stop trying to maintain that impossible split allegiance, conflict literally becomes impossible for you.
Not because you suddenly handle every situation perfectly on the outside.
But because you stop fueling the internal engine of conflict by trying to serve two incompatible ways of seeing the world. You withdraw your belief from the ego side of the argument.
Yeah, we touched on this earlier, how even when the ego wins, it's unsatisfying. You win the argument with the neighbor, maybe they apologize grudgingly, but does it bring deep peace?
Rarely. Usually there's a hollowness or maybe even a new anxiety like, now you have to be vigilant, defend that win, or worry about future conflicts. Ego victories are built on the unstable ground of separation.
Whereas aligning with God's will brings peace because there's nothing opposing it in reality. What you truly want, connection, isn't something you have to fight for. It's inherent in that will.
And that line in the lesson, your will alone can bring me happiness and only yours exists. That second part, only yours exists, is the core metaphysical statement.
It means the ego's will, the desire to be separate, fearful, is actually a hallucination. It's a wish for something that cannot fundamentally be real.
So when we're caught in conflict, we're essentially dedicating our powerful minds to making a fantasy seem real. We're trying to manifest something that literally does not exist.
And the suffering we feel isn't a punishment. It's the natural, inevitable result of pushing against the fundamental nature of reality. It's like trying to swim upstream against an infinitely powerful current.
Which brings us back to that profound statement. Your Son is one with you in being and in will.
The separation we experience is the illusion.
It can't be done.
And that impossible effort is the source of all the psychological strain, the anxiety, the feeling of being torn.
The lesson reinforces this. Nothing contradicts the holy truth that I remain as you created me. None of the drama, none of the internal battles, none of the perceived failures or conflicts actually change the fundamental truth of our unified nature.
The conflict, then, isn't revealing a flaw in our being. It's just a very accurate diagnostic tool. It shows us precisely where we've temporarily forgotten our true nature and are investing belief in the illusion of separation.
And we can remember that truth, shift that allegiance in any moment, which leads to that beautiful line about entering silence.
We enter silently into a state where conflict cannot come. The constant mental chatter, the arguments for limitation and fear, that's the ego fighting for its illusory existence. The Holy Spirit offers the simple, quiet alternative.
When you finally choose to just let go of the ego's argument, Recognizing it's based on an impossibility, the conflict simply dissolves.
And what's left is that silence, that simple clarity. It was there underneath all along. The conflict wasn't a real thing to be overcome. It was an overlay of effort that could simply be dropped.
And the lesson titled Certainty Cannot Be My Will just hammers this home. Conflicting wishes are impossible as an expression of your true will, because true will is inherently definitionally unified and peaceful.
So every time you experience that inner tug of war, you know you're engaging with the ego's simulation of will, which is always based on the false premise of separation.
So to wrap this up for you today, Lesson 307 shows us that any feeling of internal conflict is a direct signal. It tells you you're trying to serve two masters: God's unified will and the ego's conflicting will based on separation.
We talked through those practical steps for moving out of that conflict. First, recognize the feeling as the signal, distinguishing it from the surface issue. Second, pause and ask, what's this for? Shifting your purpose to healing.
Third, feel the feelings without letting them define you or reality. Fourth, ask for guidance from your inner wisdom, not for strategy, but for the next peaceful step. And fifth, act from that place of peace and clarity, even if action is required.
And the foundational truth underpinning all of this is that our actual being is already one with our source, in will and nature. The conflict is just showing us where we've temporarily forgotten this unity.
So the ongoing practice becomes using every moment of conflict, big or small, as that opportunity. An opportunity to stop trying to serve two masters and to simply remember and choose the single, peaceful, unified will that is already ours.
I woke up to a miracle today. Triggers fade as I find my way. No judgment, no fear to sway. In this peaceful state, I'll stay.
As always, you can reach us. The email is acim@theworldharmonyproject.org, or find us on social media. Just search the World Harmony Project.
Thank you for joining us for this exploration today.
And remember this affirmation: when I feel torn, I can pause and choose peace instead of the fight.